Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor has been the focus of enormous career speculation ever since Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump packed the Supreme Court with right-wing justices. The left is anxious about not losing any more ground than the 6-3 supermajority that the right currently possesses. Well, CNN is reporting today that Sotomayor has made her plans for the future clear. We're going to take a look at those plans, but first let's examine why this is such a hot-button issue to begin with for the left. CNN reports that some progressives have suggested Sotomayor, the most senior liberal on the conservative Supreme Court, should step down so that Biden could try to name a replacement in the short window before Trump takes office in January. Now, talk has simmered for months over the possibility of Sotomayor retiring so that Biden could name a successor and ensure the seat remains a reliable vote for the liberal wing, but that has gone nowhere. The steam that really drives the engine of this pressure is due in large part to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The 6-3 supermajority came into existence because Ruth Bader Ginsburg stayed on the court too long and died at 87 years old during the Trump presidency, guaranteeing a flipped seat. Sotomayor is only 70 years old, but she does have type 1 diabetes, so people are fearful that Sotomayor may not survive long enough for a Democratic president to appoint a successor. Replacing Sotomayor on the bench would not be an easy task. She is the only Hispanic on the bench and the only liberal Catholic, which makes her a decidedly important role model, as she proves that Catholics can be both pro-life and pro-choice. Not that the political or religious right appreciate that position. And unlike the justices in the majority, Sotomayor grew up in a decidedly working-class environment, including living in public housing. But the other key aspect of Sotomayor's presence on the bench that would be sorely missed is that she is an aggressive questioner in oral arguments, unlike the unqualified Clarence Thomas, who spent about 10 years on the bench before asking a question. Indeed, Sotomayor's very first case was none other than Citizens United, the case in which the court majority ruled that money is equal to free speech. They made that decision without Sotomayor, who tore apart the opposing attorney. But CNN reported today that Justice Sonia Sotomayor has made clear she has no plans to step down, according to people close to her, despite calls from some on the left that Biden should try to name a successor before President-elect Donald Trump takes office. She's in great health, and the court needs her now more than ever, said one person close to the justice. But the other reason that Sotomayor should not step down is that the plan and speculation are deeply flawed to begin with. Appointing a Supreme Court justice is time-consuming, but even if Biden and Senate Leader Chuck Schumer could rush a replacement through the nominating process, they don't have the votes to get that person confirmed. The Democrats have 51 votes, but 2 of those votes belong to the enigmatic Kyrsten Sinema and to the completely curmudgeonly Joe Manchin, neither of whom would be inclined to vote with Democrats for putting a liberal on the bench. You can just hear both of them whining that we need a bipartisan nominee. And of course, none would ever be found that would please Republicans, and so they'd run out the clock. Surprise, surprise. In fact, the impracticality of the plan is so pronounced that Bernie Sanders wouldn't even talk about it. Watch him being asked and his response.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask you about the Supreme Court. Some Democrats behind the scenes quietly talking about the possibility, should Justice Sotomayor step down, to allow President Biden to appoint someone who's younger. She's only 70 years old. Is that something that you would support? Do you think she should step down?
No, I don't.
Have you heard any talk of this?
A little bit, yes. I don't think it's a sensible approach.
And you don't think it's a sensible approach?
Correct.
All right. Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you very much for your time this morning and your perspective.
Have you ever seen Bernie Sanders stonewall a reporter so badly? That doesn't mean the plan is impractical. It means he thinks it's ridiculous. In addition to being impractical, it's also just misplaced. Democrats are worried about Sotomayor's health. Clarence Thomas is a walking heart attack just waiting to happen. And he's not the only one. Who here really thinks Trump is going to make it through his entire term? And if there is a Supreme Court opening, it's very likely going to turn into a battle. Trump will predictably ignore advice and instead try to nominate a toady whose loyalty to Trump is absolute. That will be his objective. And that puts Eileen Cannon at the top of the list. If that happens, don't think for a minute the Republican Senate is just going to roll over. Mitt Romney from Utah, John Thune from South Dakota, John Cornyn from Texas are not going to approve her. They want solid right-wing candidates, not Trump brown-nosers. It is very unlikely they would go along with approving weak nominees like Cannon. If Democrats are looking for more guardrails on the Trump presidency, the Supreme Court is not the place to do it. Democratic governors are the place to look. Gavin Newsom of California, Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, Tim Walz of Minnesota, remember him? Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, and Maura Healey of Massachusetts have all made clear that they are building infrastructure to resist Trump and his Project 2025. In fact, when you look at the territory and the populations of these states, it's easy to conclude that the best thing that could happen to Democrats is for the Republican Congress to eliminate the ACA. Because if Trump and the Republicans get rid of Obamacare, the governors of these states could form a compact and replace the ACA with their own version, which could easily be made better than the current ACA. Then the people in the red states would have their health care taken away, which is surely going to cost Republicans dearly. Meanwhile, people living in the blue states keep their health care. In fact, they might even get better health care. These are the kind of things Democrats should be working on, not trying to pressure a perfectly good Supreme Court justice with a plan that won't work to begin with. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.